Hello everyone, I'm Sarah and welcome to my crochet channel. Today's video I'm going to show you how to crochet this headband. It is a cable stitched headband. You can see where the cables go over and we're stitching in front post and back post, and so it's a super fun way to learn how to stitch the cable stitch and also make a nice cozy headband that's wide enough to be an ear warmer because it measures about 4.5 inches wide. Now the length of it is about 22 to 24 inches, but keep in mind it's very stretchy and you don't want to make it too big or it'll slide right off your head. We don't want that in the cold weather. Now you can find this crochet pattern with lots of pictures on my blog, and I'll put that blog link down in the notes underneath this video. To make our cable stitch headband and ear warmer, you're going to need some chunky or bulky number 5 yarns. This rust yarn is I Love This Chunky from Hobby Lobby, and I used the Huga yarn from Red Heart in a gray, sort of a gray brown for the trim. I'm going to be using this yarn today for the main portion of our headband, and then I'm going to use this I Love This Chunky in white for my trim. Now you'll notice they're different brands that I've put together, but that's okay as long as you're using the same fiber, which they're all acrylic, and they're all number 5 bulky yarns. So this is a great project to make some presents or gifts and use up some of your leftover bulky number 5 yarns. We're going to be stitching with our K-hook today, and that's a 6.50 millimeter crochet hook. You need a needle just to weave in your ends and a pair of scissors. Now before we get started with our cable stitch headband, I don't want you to feel intimidated by this stitch pattern. You're going to learn it, and I am going to show you step by step, row by row, and before we're done, you'll go, oh, that's a lot easier than I thought. All right, let's get started with our slip knot, and we're going to chain 12 chains. And be sure and chain this initial 12 chains just a little bit loose because we're going to be stitching in around the headband, and then we'll put the two ends together, and you don't want one side puckered up. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. So I have 12 chains stitched just a little bit loose, and we're going to begin by placing a double crochet in the 4th chain from the hook. 1, 2, 3, 4. So we'll go in, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through the first 2, yarn over, and go through the second 2. And now we'll stitch 1 double crochet in each of those remaining chains. Alrighty, I'm going to go ahead and chain 3, and we'll take a look at it. We began in the 4th chain from the hook, so our chain 3 here counts as our first, so that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 double crochets for row 1, and then we chained 3. We've chained 3, and now we're going to turn our work. And we're going to learn, or do, if you already know how to do, front post stitches on this row. So our chain 3 counts as our first, so we're going to stitch a double crochet in the next 2 stitches. So there's 1 and 2. Now in the next 4 stitches, we're going to stitch front post double crochets. We're still stitching double crochets. We're just putting them around the posts of the stitches instead of up here in the top. All right, so this is the post of your stitch. So we'll stitch our double crochets, and we're going to stitch 1 in the next 4. So there's 2, 3, and 4. One, 2, 3, 4 front post double crochets. And now we'll stitch 1 double crochet in the next 3. 1, 2, and 3. There we go. And we'll go ahead and make our chain 3. All right, let's take a look at it real quick. We have 3 regular double crochets. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 front post double crochets and 1, 2, 3 regular double crochets and our chain 3. We chain 3. We're going to turn our work. We're going to place a double crochet in the next 2 stitches because again our chain 3 counts as our first. So we're stitching the next 2, and that brings us to where we stitch those front post double crochets on this side. And now that it's on the other side, they're back post double crochets. All right, so we're going to be stitching them on the back side. All right, so yarn over. We're going to go to the back of our work and go around that post and stitch our double crochet. So this is what it looks like on this side, and this is what it looks like on this side. And we'll stitch 1 in each of those 4. So here's our second one. There's our third. And our fourth. So it looks like ridges on the back side, but on the front side we stitched in those 4 front posts, but because we turned our work over, they became the back posts. All right, so now we'll stitch a regular double crochet in those last 3 double crochets. And chain 3. So this is what it looks like on the back. And when we turn our work, it looks like this on the front. 3 double crochets. These are our 4 back posts, but when we turn it to the front, they look like front posts. That's where this can be a little bit confusing. They're called back posts because when we stitched them, we were working to the back side of our work. All right, that's where that can be just a little bit confusing, but this is the way that it should look at row 3. So we chain 3 and turn back to the front of our work. Our chain 3 again counts as our first double crochet, and so we'll double crochet in the next 2, 1 and 2. And then we're again going to stitch a front post in each of those 4 stitches. One, 2, 3, and 4. And then we'll stitch 1 double crochet in those last 3. 1, 2, 3, and we'll chain 3. So we stitched another row of 3 double crochets, 4 front posts, and 3 double crochets. All right, so chain 3, turn, 1 double crochet in the next 2, 1 and 2. Then we'll stitch 1 back post stitch in each of those next 4 stitches. So we go around the back, and we're stitching over those front posts from the previous row. and then we'll stitch 1 double crochet in those last 3. 1, 2, and 3, and chain 3. So you can see the back looks like this. How they have the ridges where we stitched in the front posts there and the back posts. Then we'll turn it over. And again, we have 3 double crochets. Here's our 4 back posts that we stitched in the front posts of the previous row, and then 3 double crochets. Now we're ready for row 6. We've chained 3. And on this row is where it can be just a little bit more complicated. But don't worry, I'm going to walk you through it, and then again you'll say, oh, that's a lot easier than I thought. Okay, so our chain 3 counts as our first. We're going to double crochet in the next 2 stitches, just like we've done on every row. And now this brings us to our 4 post or front post stitches. We're going to skip the first 2, and we're going to triple front post around the next 2 stitches. So 2 wraps on your hook. We're skipping the first 2 and stitching in the 3rd and the 4th. 2 wraps, and we'll stitch in the next one, a front post triple stitch. All right, now we're going to cross back and stitch in these 2 stitches that we skipped of those 2 front post stitches. So 2 wraps, we'll go around the first front post stitch, 2 wraps. Now we're going to come in and stitch around that second one that we skipped. All right, see how that made an X? Let me bring this down so you can see better. It made an X. We skipped the first 2 and we stitched 2 triples in the next 2. Then we went back and did the first and the second with triple front post stitches. Now we're going to double crochet in those last 3 stitches. There we go. And chain 3. All right, so let's take a look at how it looks. See those stitches in there. 3 double crochets, 4 triples, and 3 double crochets, and we crossed the triples. We chained 3. We're going to turn our work, and this part can be a little bit confusing as well, but flatten those out so you can see where your X's are, your X is in the front. The main thing about cables is just really knowing where your stitches are, okay? So our chain 3 counts as our first double crochet, and we're going to double crochet in the next 2. 1 and 2. Now we're going to do back post double crochets in those stitches. All right, I'm going to turn it this way so you can see. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in these first 2 and stitch a back post double crochet. Okay, we stitched them in the 2 that were crossed over. Now we're going to stitch them in the 2 that are underneath. Okay, so I'm going to show you from this way. We're going around that. Make sure you get that first one that we have right in there. Here's the 2. We're going to go in that first one. Stitch a back post double crochet, and then we'll go to the next one and stitch a back post double crochet. All right, so I want you to see how that looks from this side and from the back. And then we'll stitch 1 double crochet in those last 3. 1, 2, 3. And we'll go ahead and chain 3. Okay, now let's take a look at it. This is how it looks from the back. We'll turn it over. We stitched those 3 double crochets. Then we stitched a back post in those next 2 triples. Then we stitched a back post in the next 2 triples. Then we stitched 1 double crochet in the last 3 and chained 3. And that's the way that that should look for row 7. And you have now stitched your first cable crochet stitch. And it was a lot easier than you thought. If you struggled with it a little bit, don't worry. Just keep practicing, and you'll have more time to practice as we make our headband. All right, so what we're going to do next is we're basically just going to repeat what we did down here. We're going to double crochet in the next 2 stitches, 1 and 2. Then we'll front post in each of these front post stitches. 1. They're back post stitches from the previous row, but we're front posting in them. Front post, double crochet. So we'll have 4 front post double crochets. Now we'll just stitch a double crochet in those last 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3, chain 3, and turn. 1 double crochet in the next 2, 1 and 2. Then we'll back post stitch, double crochet back post in those 4 front posts from the previous row. There we go. And then we'll have 1 double crochet in those last 3. And chain 3. So we repeated what we did on row 2 and 3, and now we're just going to repeat that again. So I repeated row 2 and 3 again. So there's 4 rows there, and now I'm going to show you again how to do these 2 rows in here for our cable. All right, so we again begin with our chain 3 and 1 double crochet in the next 2 stitches. So 1 and 2. All right, now we're going to triple front post. We're going to skip the first 2 stitches and triple front post in the next 2. 1 and 2. Now we're going to cross back and triple front post in these 2 stitches. And be sure you start in that first one that you skipped and then do the second one. 2 wraps, go around, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through the first 2, yarn over, go through the second 2, yarn over, and go through the third 2. So now we made another cable. All right, and then we'll double crochet in those last 3 stitches. 1, 2, and 3. Chain 3 and turn. And now we'll be working on the back side. We'll double crochet in the next 2 stitches. 1, 2, and now we're going to back post, double crochet in those 4 cables that we made, or 4 triples, not cables, that we stitched. And we'll start with the first one and stitch back post, double crochet in those 2. And then we'll do the next 2. The hardest one to find is that one right there. So push that out there, get your hook around it, and stitch that double crochet front post, and then stitch in the next one. Okay. Now we'll stitch 1 double crochet in those last 3 stitches. 1, 2, and 3. And chain 3. So here's our back of our work, and you can see all those ridges from front posting. And here's our crossover where we stitched our first cable, and here's where we stitched our next one. All right, let's turn it over so you can get a good look at it. So we have those, here's our initial beginning row, and then 4 front post, back post in the center. Then we did our cable, and then 4, and then our cable. And now what you're going to do is you're going to continue to repeat row 2 through row 7. We've done it one more time, and you need to repeat it 2 more times. Row 2, which are the front post, back post, front post, back post, then our cable stitch with our triple front posts, and then our back post row again, which brings you up here. And so that's row 2 through row 7, and you'll need to repeat that 2 more times. I brought the camera out so that you can see. Here's where we ended. We did 4 rows with 2 front post and 2 back post sections of 4 double crochets. Then here's our cable rows. Then we did that again, and then we repeated it 2 more times. So you're going to have 1, 2, 3, 4 cable crossovers. All right, and then once you finish your last one, we need to go back and repeat rows 2 through 5 so that we have front post, back post, front post, back post on the end of our headband. All right, so I'm going to do a row of front post, a row of back post, a row of front post, and a row of back post, just like we've been doing in these sections. I have completed those additional rows, and now I'm going to put the 2 ends of my headband together. All right, I'm going to chain 1, and then I'm just going to single crochet the ends together. So I'll go in the first stitch and the first stitch on this side and stitch a single crochet. And we'll do this all the way across. Stitching the front and the back together. I single crocheted the 2 ends of my headband together, and I'm going to cut my yarn, and we'll tie that off. And then we'll go ahead and grab our needle and weave that into the inside. We want to weave it in securely because it's probably going to get some wear and tear as it's put on and off. Whoever's head is going to wear this. Alrighty. We'll clip that side, and then we'll do the other side as well. Making sure we weave those in securely. And then next I'm going to show you how to add that fun trim. Whoops. There we go. And I like adding a little fun fuzzy trim to this because it just gives it a nice finished touch. All right. So now here's our cable stitched headband. There's our seam in the back. And isn't that cute? Even by itself, it is adorable. But we're going to add that trim to make it even more adorable. I already single crocheted the trim on one edge, and you can see it's just basic single crochets. And so I'm going to show you how to do the other end, or the other side. All right, so here is the seam. And so we're just going to join right in that end of that seam with our trim color and chain 1. And now we're just going to single crochet around the edge. The key to it looking really nice is to try to go in the ends of the stitches and not the holes. There may be a spot where you cannot find a place to put it and you go in a hole, and that's okay. but it just looks a lot better if you try to go in those stitches and not the holes. It just gives it a much smoother appearance. And you want to make sure that you still have stretch on that so it still fits your head or the person you're giving to nicely without being tight. Alright, so you want to put your stitches close together and in the sides of the stitches, working all the way around. And you want it to look nice and even. And I really like the white up against this teal. It's very pretty. Alright, so I'm just going to continue working all the way around the outside edges with my white yarn for a nice trim on my cable stitch headband. I've finished stitching all the way around this edge. I'm going to join to that first single crochet. Cut my yarn, and then we'll just bring that in that next loop so it looks pretty on the front. And then I'll just grab my needle and weave these in. Now you can leave your headband flat and wear it as a nice, ear warmer or headband, nice and flat. Or you can cinch the middle in, and I'm going to show you how to do that real quick as soon as I weave these ends in. So here's our completed cable headband. It looks really pretty. But if you want to cinch it in the front, you can. And what I do is I take a long piece of yarn. This is about probably 30 inches long. All right, and I fold it in half so it has a loop. And you can choose where you want to put your cinch. I like to do it through the center of one of these sections so we don't hide our cables. All right, so I'm going to put that through. I'm going to pull the end of this through the loop, and that's going to cinch that in. Okay, and then I can kind of adjust that how I want. And then I just wrap this around a couple of times. That's probably way more yarn than I need, but I like to do it that way. And I like using the trim color. All right, so then I'm on the inside of my little cinch spot here. I take my needle and I just thread one of those on. And I'm just going to go through some of that and go like this. Then I'll grab the other one and I'll go the other direction, just so everything's cinched up nicely on the front. Get in there. All right, then I'll take these two ends and just tie them securely. There you go. And then we'll just cut that off. So now the front of my cable stitched headband is cinched up, and it's really cute, isn't it? And that's how you make the cable stitched headband or ear warmer. You can cinch it up in the middle, or you can leave it nice and flat. These are perfect for the guys and the girls. They're both beautiful and they're both comfortable and warm, and they look really classy with those cables running through.